and welcome to this week's edition of The Travel Show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com. When you spend time putting the show together, editing interviews, it can be very difficult not to give away what you get told in the interviews when you do an introduction, and I'm really struggling to talk about what I'm going to be talking about in this week's show. Let's just say that my guest this week is Ronald Holgerson. He's the president and CEO of Ontario Tourism Marketing Partnership. So obviously we're going to be talking about Ontario. But before I start blurting out all the answers to the questions I've asked Ronald during the interview, let's just get straight into it. And first of all, we're going to find out where Ontario is.
Ontario is most definitely a province. Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. We're in what we'd call East Central Canada, and it is the second largest province after Quebec.
Because it's so large, does it cover more than one time zone?
Yeah, well, most of it is in the eastern time zone, but the northwestern part of the province shares time with Manitoba. So we have 2.
I'm guessing, though it's a large place, there isn't many people living there.
Ontario actually has a population of 13.8 million. Mm-hmm. But like most of Canada, where 90% of the population lives close to the border, the city of Toronto and the greater Toronto area, which is sort of from, about 30 minutes each side of Toronto, there's a total population of 6 million. But 2.8 are in the actual city of Toronto, but 6.1 million are in what we call the GTA, or the Greater Toronto Area. And I think you were asking about Ottawa as well, and the census metropolitan population for Ottawa is 1.3 million, and those are the 2 largest cities in the province.
Canada's famous, or well known for having 2 languages, French and English. Is there an official language for Ontario?
Ontario is officially English, but does everything in both languages that are the official languages of Canada. There, of the population of Ontario, 680,000 are Francophone. But as the government of Ontario, everything we do and publish online or in print and video and whatever, we do in both languages. Et je peux avoir la réunion en français aussi, si vous voulez.
Come on, I'm English. I can't speak any other language than English. We're well known for it. That's very impressive, though.
I just said that I could do the interview in French as well, if you like.
No, thank you. I struggle with English. What's the brief history of the province?
I don't know if you're a lover of historical books, but I would strongly recommend reading David Hackett Fisher's book, Champlain's Dream. And the reason I reference it is that Ontario is home to 250,000 Aboriginal people. And there's many First Nations throughout the province who speak many Aboriginal languages. So there was a long history of Ontario that happens before any people arrived from Europe. And the languages or the cultures that were most known were called Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Cree, and then sort of in the north, and then in the south there was something called the Six Nations, and they were Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Seneca, Tuscarora, and Oneida. And that population, each of those nations had their own land and their own culture. And when Champlain came to North America and was visited Ontario about 400 years ago, Champlain treated the Aboriginal people with incredible respect and treated their chiefs like kings, and was a strong proponent of, I'm going to say, equality among the French and the indigenous peoples. Very different from what happened in America. So the Francophones came first, and then, of course, later in our history, after the 7 Years' War, Britain took responsibility for North America and basically divided North America eventually into America and Canada. The American Revolution in the 1775 to 83, a lot of Americans came north, and Iroquois moved to Upper Canada from New York State, which was another Aboriginal group. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if you know, we had a War of 1812 where we think we defeated the Americans and stopped them from invading. We moved our capital from Newark, which is now Niagara-on-the-Lake, to Toronto. We burned the White House, which is famous in our history. I don't know that the Americans share the same view of this history, but basically, by about 1830, Canada's population was 235,000, and then somewhere in about 1791, the British enacted a constitutional act that split what was known as Quebec into Upper Canada and Lower Canada. Upper and lower isn't a rank issue. It's a question of where you are on the river and in the Great Lakes. So Upper Canada was Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and all of the Great Lakes, and Lower Canada was further down the St. Lawrence. And in 1867, 4 provinces were created: Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, and that's where Canada started. And then after that, Ontario just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And I would say now that Toronto is the economic and cultural capital of Canada. Ottawa is our political national capital. But in terms of population and economy and so on, I like to say that Toronto is our New York City.
Yep.
And then, I mean, you could read gazillion history books about all of these topics, but I think that's sort of a nutshell version, from Aboriginal to Francophone exploration, not so much settlement, and then Anglophone settlement, and then by the time we get to 1867, we've got 4 provinces with capitals and so on.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on UKHealthRadio.com. So we're talking about Ontario this week, a province in Canada. My guest is Ronald Holgerson, who's President and CEO of Ontario Tourism Marketing Partnership. When you do research for these interviews, or when I do research for these interviews, I try and find out weird facts and figures, something that interests me. And I found that there's an awful lot of places around the world that have official things: official bird, official cat, official dog, official plant. I may be exaggerating slightly there, but a lot of places do have an official something. And I found when I was researching about Ontario that their official bird is the common loon. A, I didn't know what a common loon is, and B, why? So this is the next question I put to Ronald to find out why the common loon is the official bird of Ontario. When I was doing research for the state, I come across things such as the official bird, and it's a common loon. Why was the common loon adopted as an official bird for the state?
I think because, have you ever heard one?
I haven't, no.
So it's got a very haunting call that is totally unique to the sound of this bird. And I think that there was a feeling that the loon's call was sort of associated with the beauty and the solitude of Ontario's wilderness. The bird can dive to depths of 70 meters in search of food. It can stay underwater for 3 minutes. But I think what's most remarkable is if you're sitting in a what we call a Muskoka chair, kind of like a wooden chair that's very comfortable on your dock, and it's sunset, and I cannot imitate the sound, sorry, you would hear this, like, ooh, I don't even know how to do it, but an incredible haunting sound that comes out of nowhere, and you hear several of them, and it's the loon, and it's sort of ubiquitous. It's all over the province.
Do you have an official tree or plants, anything like that as well?
There's the white trillium is the official flower, and if you look at the Ontario government logo, it's a 3-leafed flower. It's a white blossom. Officially, it's associated with peace and hope, and they bloom early spring throughout the province. It's got sort of 3 petals, and that's what you'll see in the Ontario logo. The official tree is the eastern white pine, which was made the official tree in 1984. The trillium became the official flower in 1937. And the eastern white pine is found throughout the whole province. We have vast forests in the north. It's also known as the Tree of Great Peace by the Haudenosaunee First Nations of southern Ontario. Haudenossaunee. They're the tallest in Ontario. They can live for over 250 years, and they make great Christmas trees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we also have an official mineral. It's amethyst. And that was adopted in 1975. It's a form of quartz. Are you familiar with it?
I am, yes. My wife's quite into it.
It's a very beautiful purple color.
Mm. Already in the chat we're having, you've mentioned Ottawa and Toronto. Do they make good twin centre holiday destinations?
Well, one of the unique things about Ontario is that you can fly or drive everywhere within 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So visitors to Toronto often go to Niagara Falls, which is, I think, the number one natural phenomena for which Ontario and even Canada is renowned. And then you can do a tour of the province in your car over a 7-day period if you have time.
Mm-hmm.
So my sort of ideal tour of Ontario is that you land in Toronto, you do the edge walk on the top of the CN Tower, which I have done. Mm-hmm. You take in some of the great restaurants. There's, depending on when you come, there can be ballet, opera, theater. And you go down to Niagara Falls, where in addition to taking the Hornblower boat, which are new, right to the base of the falls, you can also visit the Butterfly Garden. There's great golf courses. There's the George Bernard Shaw Theatre Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake nearby. Great shopping in Toronto and Niagara. One of my favorite things to do every summer is to go to Stratford. The Stratford Festival in Stratford, Ontario is arguably North America's most revered Shakespeare festival. Mm-hmm. This year they're doing Macbeth, but each year they also do, and some history plays, but each year they do a couple of comedies, tragedies, histories, and a few musicals. This year they're doing a Little Night Music and Chorus Line, and they're getting fabulous reviews. Sometimes they've sent their productions to New York and been nominated for Tonys and so on. After Stratford, if you go further north towards Georgian Bay, there's the Blue Mountain Resort area. Very popular in the winter with skiing for skiers out of Toronto. There's Sauble Beach, and Tobermory is probably the clearest water and the best scuba diving in the province. Mm-hmm. Wasaga Beach is the longest freshwater beach in all of Ontario. And in that same vicinity, there's the Ste. Marie among the Hurons, which is a replica of the fort where the Francophone explorers met with and lived with the Huron Indians. It's quite a remarkable site. Then you can drive slightly northeast to Muskoka. And Muskoka is almost world-renowned. There are a lot of international celebrities even who have cottages there for being able to just enjoy the lake, the swimming, the water skiing. You can take a steamship up the lake called the